Hi, and welcome to today's Daily Chronicle. Today is Thursday, November 7th, 2024. Rain is finally coming to the drought-stricken Amazon, but it may not be enough. Dark clouds rumble over the tiny Amazon River, community of Nossa Senhora del Livramento. After 2 years of devastating drought, you might think that residents in this parched and isolated town of about 350 families would be elated, but that it's finally raining. But many shrug at the brief torrential downpour. Some take it as the burst of energy a patient gets before death. Such pessimism is understandable, given the devastation this and hundreds of other communities have been experiencing throughout the Amazon. Dependent on its vast riverways for nearly everything, millions of residents have been left high and dry. In more than 100 years since the river levels have been monitored, never has the mighty Amazon had the major tributaries of the world's largest river system recorded such little rainfall. In October, the Rio Negro hit the lowest levels since the records were first kept in 1922. And now, as the annual dry season winds down, anxiety is growing as to whether the rain will come and bring enough water to refill the waterways. Renato Senna, a climatologist at Brazil's National Institute for Amazon Research, says 2 years of unprecedented drought will be tough to overcome with just one rainy season. We thought 2023 was bad, but 2024 has been far worse, he says. Climate change and increased deforestation are leading contributors to the drought. On top of that, El Niño weather pattern, which warms the Pacific waters off South America, was much stronger and longer this year, adding even more heat to the Amazon. The rate at which the Amazon is drying up is scary and much faster than anyone predicted, says Senna. In some parts of the Amazon, the annual dry season is now lasting 1 month longer than it did in the 1970s, according to researchers. Senna says it's too soon to predict whether the upcoming expected La Niña, a wet weather phenomenon, will be stronger than normal and enough to refill the rivers. 32-year-old Jolson dos Santos, who lives in Nossa Senhora do Livramento, is hopeful. God willing, everything will return to normal. The drought has been so severe, he says. The town is about a 30-minute boat ride up to the Rio Negro, with the Amazon sprawling city of Manaus. Dos Santos stands on now brittle banks that was a large creek where boats used to be able to power right up the Nossa Senhora do Livramento's main plaza. The creek bed is bone dry, with tall, bright green grass covering the once submerged ground. A few stranded boats are tied to far-off trees. With the river and creek dry, he hasn't had much construction or electrical work. Instead, he hauls goods to town from the community's pier, which had to be moved farther downriver, where the new shoreline now sits. It's now a 20 to 30-minute walk to town. First, crossing the newly exposed beach, then through the well-worn parched trail, winding through all the tall trees that were once nearly submerged by the river. As community leader Paulo Roberto Ferreira da Silva walks the trail, he points to white marks more than 13 feet overhead on the trees where the water line used to reach. This was the best fishing, he says. He, too, is waiting for more rain. With so little rain, large beaches and huge sandbars have emerged on the Amazon River and its tributaries, cutting off whole communities. In Amazonas state, which has a few major roadways, the river is vital for transporting food, fresh drinking water, and all types of commerce. More than 60 municipalities have declared a state of emergency under the drought. Boat operator João Alrodo Vieira lives outside the state capital of Manaus. He maneuvers his small rig around a huge sandbar that has emerged at the popular point where the black waters of the Rio Negro meet the pale green Amazon River. The two don't mix. He says watching the water disappear is sad. The land just keeps growing, and there is not enough river for us to move. His community has been hit really hard by the drought. Officials are dredging parts of the Amazon to keep the waterways open and have increased number of ferries crossing the rivers to access the limited highways between major cities. Izer Lazarati is waiting on a barge to cross the Rio Negro into Manaus, where he'll get on one of the only roads available to transport his load of steel wiring. He prefers taking a barge down the river when it's full and can support bigger loads. It's better. You don't wear out your truck. There's no wear and tear, he says. He recently lost an axle on the bumpy roads of the Amazon, not to mention the exhaustion of the long, lonely rides. The drought has had a punishing impact on food prices too. At Manaus' giant fish market, Monger Dantes Abreu sells one of the Amazon's largest fishes, the piracu. He says his costs have jumped some 25%. He estimates he's lost about half of his clientele. I'm 50 years old, and I've never seen two droughts like this before, he says. He blames deforestation. Abreu has 2 kids and worries about their future with more severe weather. We are feeling it now, he says, but our children will feel it much more.
Thank you. So let me say, and I love you back, and I love you back. So let me say, my heart is full today. My heart is full today, full of gratitude for the trust you have placed in me, full of love for our country, and full of resolve. The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for, but hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright. As long as we never give up, and as long as we keep fighting. To my beloved Doug and our family, I love you so very much. To President Biden and Dr. Biden, thank you for your faith and support. To Governor Walz and the Walz family, I know your service to our nation will continue. And to my extraordinary team, to the volunteers who gave so much of themselves, to the poll workers and the local election officials, I thank you all. Look, I am so proud of the race we ran, and the way we ran it, Over the 107 days of this campaign, we have been intentional about building community and building coalitions, bringing people together from every walk of life and background, united by love of country, with enthusiasm and joy in our fight for America's future. And we did it with the knowledge that we all have so much more in common than what separates us. Now I know folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now. I get it. But we must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power. A fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept the results. That principle, as much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny. And anyone who seeks the public trust must honor it. At the same time, in our nation, we owe loyalty not to a president or a party, but to the Constitution of the United States. And loyalty to our conscience and to our God. My allegiance to all three is why I am here to say, while I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign. The fight for freedom, for opportunity, for fairness, and the dignity of all people. A fight for the ideals at the heart of our nation. The ideals that reflect America at our best. That is a fight I will never give up. I will never give up the fight for a future where Americans can pursue their dreams, ambitions, and aspirations. Where the women of America have the freedom to make decisions about their own body and not have their government telling them what to do. We will never give up the fight to protect our schools and our streets from gun violence. And America, we will never give up the fight for our democracy, for the rule of law, for equal justice, and for the sacred idea that every one of us, no matter who we are or where we start out, has certain fundamental rights and freedoms that must be respected and upheld. And we will continue to wage this fight in the voting booth, in the courts, and in the public square. And we will also wage it in quieter ways, in how we live our lives, by treating one another with kindness and respect, by looking in the face of a stranger and seeing a neighbor, by always using our strength to lift people up, to fight for the dignity that all people deserve. The fight for our freedom will take hard work, but like I always say, we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work can be joyful work. And the fight for our country is always worth it. It is always worth it. To the young people who are watching, it is... To the young people who are watching, it is okay to feel sad and disappointed. But please know it's going to be okay. On the campaign, I would often say, when we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. That doesn't mean we won't win. The important thing is don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. You have power. And don't you ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it has never been done before. You have the capacity to do extraordinary good in the world. And so to everyone who is watching, do not despair. This is not a time to throw up our hands. This is a time to roll up our sleeves. This is a time to organize, to mobilize, and to stay engaged for the sake of freedom and justice and the future that we all know we can build together. Look, many of you know I started out as a prosecutor, and throughout my career I saw people at some of the worst times in their lives. People who had suffered great harm and great pain, and yet found within themselves the strength and the courage and the resolve to take the stand, to take a stand, to fight for justice, to fight for themselves, to fight for others. So let their courage be our inspiration. Let their determination be our charge. And I'll close with this. There's an adage an historian once called a law of history, true of every society across the ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time, but for the benefit of us all, I hope that is not the case. But here's the thing, America, if it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars. The light of optimism, of faith, of truth, and service. And may that work guide us, even in the face of setbacks, toward the extraordinary promise of the United States of America. I thank you all. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Cuba's power grid goes down as Hurricane Rafael plows across island. A man walks through the wind and rain brought by Hurricane Rafael in Havana, Cuba. Havana. Hurricane Rafael pushed into the Gulf of Mexico on Wednesday night after plowing across western Cuba as a Category 3 hurricane with winds so powerful it knocked out the entire country's power grid. Massive waves lashed at the shores of Havana as sharp winds and rain whipped at the city's historic center, leaving trees littered on flooded streets on Wednesday evening. Forecasters warned Rafael could bring life-threatening storm surges, wind and flash floods to western swaths of the island after it knocked out power and dumped the rain on the Cayman Islands, and Jamaica the night before. The extent of the damage was still unclear as of Wednesday night. The storm was located 55 miles west-northwest of Havana on Wednesday. After plowing across the island, it slowed to a Category 2 hurricane. It had maximum sustained winds of 105 miles per hour and was moving northwest at 13 miles per hour, according to the National Hurricane Center. The storm is bad news for Cuba, which is struggling with devastating blackouts, while recovering from another hurricane 2 weeks ago that killed at least 6 people in the eastern part of the island. Earlier on Wednesday, the Cuban government issued an alert for the incoming storm while crews in Havana worked to fortify buildings and clear scraps from seaside areas in anticipation of flooding. Classes and public transport were suspended on parts of the island, and authorities canceled flights in and out Havana and Varadero. Meanwhile, thousands of people in the west of the island were evacuated as prevention measure. Sylvia Perez, a 72-year-old retiree living in a coastal area of Havana, was among those scrambling to prepare. As other neighbors moved appliances and other furniture from ground floor homes, Perez stocked up on water and food. "This is a night I don't want to sleep through. Between the battering air and the trees," Perez said, "I'm scared for my friends and my family." Forecasters expected the storm to weaken over Cuba before emerging in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico as a hurricane. The U.S. State Department issued an advisory for Cuba on Tuesday afternoon, offering departure flights to non-essential staff and American citizens, and advising others to reconsider travel to Cuba due to potential impact of the tropical storm Rafael. On Tuesday morning, the Cuban Civil Defense called on Cubans to prepare as soon as possible, because when the storm makes landfall, it's important to stay where you are. Hurricane warning was in effect Wednesday for the Cuban provinces of Pinar del Rio, Artisma, La Habana, Mayabec, Matasnas, and the Isle of Youth. A tropical storm warning was in effect of the Cuban provinces of Villa Clara, Cienfuegos, Sacti Spiritus, and Ciego de Avila, as well as the lower and middle Florida Keys from Key West to west of the Channel 5 bridge and Dry Tortugas. The storm on Wednesday knocked out power in parts of Jamaica and unleashed flooding and landslides. The Jamaica Public Service, the island's electricity provider, said in a statement late Tuesday that impassable roads were preventing crews from restoring power in some areas. Power outages were reported across the Cayman Islands after a direct hit late Tuesday, and schools remained closed on Wednesday. While conditions have improved on Grand Cayman, residents are advised to exercise extreme caution on the roads and near coastlines, as rough seas and residential flooding risks may persist, the government said in a statement. Heavy rainfall also was expected to spread north into Florida and nearby areas of the southeast U.S. during the middle part of the week. The Hurricane Center predicted storm surges in Florida could reach up to 3 feet in Dry Tortugas and between 1 and 2 feet in the lower Florida Keys. A few west tornadoes also were expected Wednesday over the Keys and southwestern Florida. Rafael is the 17th named storm of the season. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration predicted the 2024 hurricane season was likely to be well above average, with 17 and 25 named storms. The forecast called for as many as 13 hurricanes and 4 major hurricanes. An average Atlantic hurricane season produces 14 named storms, 7 of them hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes.